to today's presentation. I'm very excited about today's own because we've been on it for some time. The presenter willingly accepted my proposal for his presentation when I went to meet him. So I'm really grateful to him. I'm grateful that as he was rounding up his DVC account staff, I approached him and willingly he just accepted without giving me any stress. So I really appreciate him for this. And he has kept to his word till today. That is his turn to present to us. But before I go ahead to introduce this already known presenter by most of us on this platform, let's remind ourselves that this is the monthly presentation by the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies of the National Open University of Nigeria. I send you all warm greetings from the Vice Chancellor of the university, Professor Olufemi Peters, and of course, all our eminent professors. I'm sorry that, yes, I just had a quick one. All of us to go off, but you will come back by God's grace. We are going to win today's battle. Like I was saying, I said the Vice Chancellor sends his warm greetings to everyone on this platform, and this is our monthly presentation of the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies. We had 2 presentations in the month of January, and that is why it was very necessary for February to rest a bit. However, we didn't even rest fully. We had our workshop, sensitization workshop, which was a physical hybrid workshop in the month of February. And so now we are back the month of March, and we are having someone we've all been expecting to talk with us. So we are very happy to be back. And by God's grace, we will continue the usual presentations every month, every second Wednesday of the month. So the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies, of course, what we know how to do best is what we are doing, as is to look into migration issues and some global study issues and bring them to limelight and discuss them so that all ears will hear and it will get to the necessary quarters that need to do something about whatever we are discussing. So we are there on Facebook, we are there on YouTube, we have our website, and all those will soon be put up very shortly by one of our admin staff on the chat page. So like I said, this center is gradually becoming old, about 4 years now, and of course, like it was started by the immediate past Vice Chancellor of our university, Professor Abdallah Adamu, who is a forefather of this center, and we really thank him for having the vision. And the current Vice Chancellor is also very much indebted to the growth of this center, and of course, all of you eminent professors who have always made it possible for us to go on with this because of your immeasurable contributions and your presence at all times. We really appreciate you all. And like I said, the vision of the center is to be a bridge between humanity and the future. And the mission is to provide a sustainable leverage for interdisciplinary research in migration and global studies. And of course, our core values are integrity, inclusion, diversity, service, and it's participatory. And of course, we are trying our very best to live up to our mandate. And without much further introduction, which I can see that most of us here are already aware of what happens in the center, we are going to now introduce the presenter of today, because we know that internet is not really so friendly. Okay, I can see Professor Abdallah is there. Welcome, sir. I'm just observing that you are already online. I've been saying, I must not miss Prof today because he needs to be here for us to logic this together. So I'm happy he's already online. You're welcome, sir. So we are going to introduce the presenter of today, and it's no other than Professor Uduma Oji Uduma. Professor Oji Uduma is a professor of logic and philosophy at the National Open University of Nigeria. But before I tell you all the positions he's been holding, let me quickly tell you that he graduated from the University of Calabar as the overall best student in the Faculty of Arts in 1988. He received the Most Reverend Dr. Brian Usanga Award to the most outstanding students in academics in the Department of Philosophy and Religion, and the Mike Anuna Memorial Award to the overall best students in philosophy in 1995. He earned PhD from the University of Lagos with distinction in coursework, blazing a trail as a PhD scholar in logic in Nigeria. Professor Uduma also holds an LLB honors degree of the University of Nigeria and was called to the Nigerian bar in 2007. So we can see we have an all-rounder presenter today, somebody who is highly knowledgeable. He began his academic career as a graduate assistant at the University of Lagos in February 1990. He also taught at the University of Port Harcourt, University of Lagos, among others. And finally, he came to the prestigious National Open University of Nigeria. I must say that that is the most prestigious where he has taught. And he served as the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academics from 2019 to 2023. His main research focus is on logic, African philosophy, with special emphasis on the desideratum for decolonizing the philosophy curricula in universities in Africa and the development of viable traditions of logic in African philosophy. The criticisms and counter-criticisms generated by his article, The Logic Question in African Philosophy, Between the Horns of Irredentism and Jingoism, heralded an emerging new area of research in African philosophy, namely the discovery, systematization, development, and progressive emendation of viable traditions of logic that can be used to evaluate issues and solve problems in Africa and beyond. So I also want to quickly say that Prof has been visiting so many universities as a visiting scholar, both in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. And he is widely traveled and has done a lot of work in philosophy and logic. Professor Uduma is a justice of peace, solicitor and advocate of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, chartered mediator and conciliator, as well as chartered manager. He is a fellow Philosophers Association of Nigeria, fellow Institute of Corporate Administration, fellow Institute for Crisis Resolution, Peace Building and Conciliation, fellow International Institute of Chartered Educational Practitioners, fellow Institute of Industrial Administration, fellow Integrated Business Society. He is a member of several other international and professional societies and bodies. These include Association of Global South Studies, International Society for African Philosophy and Studies, International Society for Philosophy of Law and Social Philosophy, African Studies and Research Forum, Council for Research in Values and Philosophy, Washington, USA, Open and Distance and E-Learning Association of Nigeria, Nigerian Bar Association, and Nigeria Institute of Management, among others. The list is endless. Who can finish describing this guru that we have before us today? I don't know, because I cannot, but I must stop at this junction, because I know that if I continue, we can write a book on our presenter of today. But currently, he's on sabbatical. So he's on sabbatical at Bingham University, Cairo. Today, he is going to speak to us about African migrants' quest for integration, reflections on the challenges and paradoxes. Yes, so we are going to listen to how Prof will use logic to explain this to us today. And I'm very happy to welcome, to take over and start his presentation, Professor Uduma Oji Uduma. Over to you, sir. You have the right to share your screen. Thank you.
Good afternoon, amiable director. I don't want to stand on any protocol so that because of my weight, the team may not collapse. So I just want to recognize a number of people. I saw my boss. Well, first of all, let me recognize the Vice Chancellor, Foreign Vice Chancellor, Professor Olufemi Peters, for sustaining the tempo that we've had with the center. And of course, my thanks go to the former Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah Obadamu, who is here and who you know has always been around for most of this thing. Little wonder he's a double professor. I think he wants to become a professor of migration studies. I also would want to appreciate Professor Godwin Sogolo, Military Professor Sogolo, who I call one of the pathfinders of philosophy in Nigeria, and my friend and the pioneer director, Professor Tijani. My HOD is here. Please, like I said, I want to thank everybody who is here. My paper is titled African Migrants' Quest for Integration, Reflections on the Challenges and the Paradoxes. When the director approached me to present a paper, I really looked at a number of issues, and I decided to look at African migrants' quest for integration, because the problem we have had about integration is always following us in one way or the other. You are aware that today in Nigeria, the tide of movement is so heavy, yet if you see what people pass through in the course of traveling, tomorrow you hear this one done Jagba, this one done Ruth. And when I look at it, Jagba, I was surprised to see that Jagba means something like escape. So more or less they're escaping. Why are they escaping? And when they escape, what kind of reception do they get? And we know that Africa has the largest number of migrants. But you know, I'm a philosopher, therefore you do not expect me to begin to give you demographic statistics about the number of migrants here, and then no, my approach is very philosophical. I am providing, I'm giving an
is breaking now.
For looking at the issues.
I hope it's not my own problem. Your line is breaking now. Is it a personal problem to me? Yeah, what is breaking?
Am I audible? Director, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, sir. But
is it breaking?
But it's on and off.
Is that correct,
Director? You may continue, sir. You may continue. Maybe you just try to stay near your speaker.
So, in looking at this thing, what we argue in this paper is that integration is a fundamental human right. As such, there is need for us to rethink our attitude to the migrants' quest for integration generally. Now, when you say migration is integration, because the issue is people appear not to be receptive to migrants getting integrated in their society. Though it's a hard problem, but if we look at what is happening to Africans, the kind of dehumanization they pass through in the name of migration, we now begin to look at, if we now come home, that's what the problem is. Africans are not receptive to fellow Africans getting integrated. And so when they now go out, if you are facing issues of ethnic chauvinism, xenophobia within the national and continental level, and you go out there and you are facing problem of racism. Why are we doing this? Are we not aware that migration is a fundamental human right? Now, we also know that all of us are migrants. Nobody is plotted from the ground. And so when people are not receptive to migrants getting included in the society, the question is, did you start from the earth that you first arrived does not make you an aborigine, as it were? Because almost everybody migrated. And so it is important we recognize that it is a right. But most importantly, when I talk about reflections on the challenges and the paradoxes, in our own, Africans are the most migrants we have in the world today. But if you come within Africa, within Nigeria, for example, there is a lot of problem that even when you have internal migration, people are being subjected to a lot of dehumanization, a lot of deprivations. And the main paradox which we will look at today is in Africa, we believe in the African principle of philosophy of communalism, or which is expressed in the Ubuntu philosophy, which talks about the interrelatedness of humanity. And therefore, if we are not receptive to people integrating in our societies, it appears that there is a problem with our understanding of our African heritage. And when we now go out, it becomes a bigger problem. So that's just the way we are going to look at it. We therefore started by looking at the definition of African migrant. And for our purpose, we said that an African migrant in Europa are referred to every person residing temporarily or permanently outside his homeland. You see, why this decision is very broad. It is broader than the idea of migrants as individuals who move from one country to another, within or outside their continent. Because migration has more or less an international connotation. But we are not looking at migration that way. We are looking at migration as the idea of once you leave your homeland to go to another place, which will now make us look at the issue of intra-national and intra-continental dimensions of migration. And if we take that, the next thing we want to look at is the historical trends of African migration. I did not want to go to define migration because we've been defining migration, what migration is. Well, in our context, who is an African migrant? An African migrant is that person that has left his homeland. Once you move from Kano to go to live in Lagos and you want to reside, you are a migrant. We call it internal migration. But we tend not to pay attention to internal migration. Meanwhile, that is where the crux of the matter is. So, but let us look at the historical trends of African migration. African migration has a long and complex history, but there are historical trends to consider. The first is what we call the fourth migration, the one that is first. Even though colonial era migration is also first, but we are discussing colonial era migration separately. Then we'll now look at the post-colonial migration, then the rise of extra-continental migration and the skilled migration. First, we'll look at what we have called forced migration. A major aspect of African migration history incorporates situations where people were forcibly taken away from their homes. What the word forcibly taken away. In the current situation, people escape. They are not taken away. These are people who are now forcibly taken away. And it is the same Western world that were forcibly taking Africans away that is now refusing Africans to come to their own, making it difficult for Africans to get integrated in their own societies. That's one of the paradoxes, but that is not the major paradox we look at. But it is important to know that there was a time that people were being forced to go to the Western world. And the most brutal historical trend in forced migration was the transatlantic slave trade. This horrific event stands out as the largest forced migration in human history. You know, when we lament about people complain that we keep blaming slave trade or colonization for most of our problems in Africa. After all, India was also colonized. Is India not moving forward? But if you look at the kind of colonization, the character of colonization that we had in Africa and what we had in India, you understand the difference. But it's the same people so that was forced colonization. In the picture there, you will see some Africans who were being tied and by their neck and the way they were moved. Now, you also have another form of forced migration, which is colonial rule. European colonization in Africa, which is between 19th and 20th centuries, involved forced migration on a large scale. This includes forced labor and migration for infrastructure projects. What were they doing? The colonialists were carrying Africans they will dislodge you, take you to, in fact, like when they were building railways, they will move people from one continent to another country to go there and help them build another railway, like in Kenya, in Uganda. Those railways were built by people from other parts of Africa. That's a form of migration. And of course, you also have the introduction of borders and tribal displacement. African societies, after the partition for Africa, the Berlin Conference, when they came in here, they were now trying, there was an arbitrary drawing of borders by colonial powers. And people who belong to the same community will be divided. You see them being segmented. Some will now be displaced. And then they are now forced to go and live where they are not, where the white man wants them to live. That's another kind of another type of migration. Now, in the post-colonial migration trend, you have, of course, the post-colonial migration trend. Following the war of independence in the 20th century, post-colonial migration in Africa became a complex phenomenon shaped by both opportunity and hardship. Migrants at this time were mainly internal. Migration at this time was mainly internal. And some of the trends were political instability and conflict. Many African nations experienced political instability and conflict. We had civil wars in Nigeria, we have had civil war in Liberia, in Sierra Leone, in Democratic Republic of Congo. This necessitated some form of migration. People were not running away either as refugees or they were seeking for safety elsewhere. They were escaping. And of course, with independence came a lot of development. Urbanization came, and cities like Lagos, Nairobi, Johannesburg became hubs for internal movement. People were moving, they were drifting. And of course, you also have the influence of the colonial legacy. This legacy of colonial borders continues to impact migration patterns. Some borders divide ethnic groups and communities, leading to cross-border movements and sometimes tensions. The effects of historical practices such as forced labor and arbitrary border delineation have persisted. Some people would just put you belong here. Even today, we are thinking. Now, you also have interregional migration. And this, after independence, there was this idea and effort by independent African states to promote regional integration and free movement. So you have ECOWAS, you have the East African Community. All this has increased the issue of migration. But when we talk about ECOWAS and this kind of interregional migration, who came back from holidays and they were asked who traveled outside the country. One young man stood up and said he traveled. They asked him, he said he traveled to Cotonou, and they were laughing at him. But it is outside the country. But people felt that such migration is also part of migration studies. It's not only when you jackpot and go to meet Tijani US that you are migrating. Okay, we will now have the extra-continental migration in Africa. In the period immediately after independence, most African migration occurred within the continent. Within the continent. Even today, it is believed that most Africans still migrate. I think South Africa and Cote d'Ivoire have they are hosting the largest number of African migrants. So, and the drivers of this extra-continental migration, because whereas there was intercontinental migration, by the later part of the 20th century, there was a rise in migration from Africa to Europe, North America, and other countries. The trend is driven by complex interplay of factors, which include economic hardship, political instability, bad governance, insecurity, among others. Of course, that's why they talk about the push factors, the pull factors. What are those push factors? But it was 2 days ago, we were told that kidnappers went to Kaduna and kidnapped 16 persons, and they're demanding 40 trillion. And we don't know the budget of Nigeria. So that you see the kind of things that are pushing people to do this thing, insecurity. Of course, I was talking with somebody the other day, say you are a professor. I said, yes. He said, you are a big man. I told him, fortunately, the salary of a professor in Nigeria is in the public domain. So, if you see what a professor like the other day, P2B was talking of, said the professor is earning less than 260. It's a professor today is earning less than about $200 or $250. That's what the professor is earning in Nigeria today. So these are things you have: low wages, job security, limited growth, job growth, unequal distribution of resources. These are the push factors. And of course, you just oppose these push factors with the pull factors, the thing that drag people. A number of people, even today, some people are leveraging on what they call proof of fund. Because of that, people are escaping. So people, the only business they do today is proof of fund. When you want to travel, they want to check this thing, they will give you money to put in your account and leveraging on it because of the way things are. So this is what has led, because even in Africa, even though we had a situation where we had intercontinental migration, but African states have had a lot of issues, issue of poverty, issue of bad governance, that has made migration into most of the African districts no longer appealing. So they want to go to Europe. So that has increased. And so that's why we mentioned the drivers of extra-continental migration. And we discussed political instability. Here we talked about civil war and armed conflict, state repression and human rights abuses, election and political violence. These are things that are really making people leave. Let's check again all the issues that are come under this. The other type of migration, the other type of trend we have is the skilled migration. Skilled migration, often referred to as brain drain or brain gain. When it is a drain this way, it is a gain the other way. It's a notable trend in Africa where skilled professionals, including doctors, engineers, academics, scientists, and other professionals, migrate to other countries in search of better opportunities. What are motivations for skilled migration? The economic opportunities are and higher salaries, education opportunities. People can fend for themselves there while going to school. In NOUN, we have a number of people that they will go on scholarship and they will not come back because the opportunities abroad are much better. Of course, I mentioned the issue of when you are asking somebody, when somebody is kidnapped. In the recent years, in Nigeria today, you don't sleep with your two eyes closed. Some people enter aeroplane, so some people fly to go to their destination, not because they have the money, but they will ask you, which one is easier, to borrow money and fly than to go and be living in the bush when you are kidnapped. These are the things that is making our country look very difficult. And most African states are like that. In most African countries, you have this problem of poor leadership leading to a number of these issues. Of course, we also look at there are so many issues: job opportunities and career development, global networking and collaboration. All these come under skill days. Now, what we are looking at, the challenges African migrants. In discussing the challenges faced by African migrants, we know that African migrants encompass diverse groups of people with varying backgrounds, motivations, and circumstances. In consequence, the challenges will be best honed if discussed according to types or classification of African migrants. So we have various of African migrants, the economic migrants. These are individuals who move primarily for economic reasons. They have their own challenges, exploitation. Once you move there, you are subjected to a lot of discrimination and exploitation. You have the skilled migrants. These skilled migrants, the doctors, the engineers, the scientists, even when they go there, they run into issues. Some of them, in fact, some people who travel, there's some people who jackpot in the next 3 months, they come back because they are unable to stand what is happening. But the worst thing about the brain drain impact is that the immigration of skilled professionals contribute to brain drain in our home countries, leading to shortages of crucial of critical workforce elements. This is a major problem, and how we want to address it is a problem that we don't know what our governments are doing. You also have refugees, you have asylum seekers, you have which are the other products I mentioned, asylum seekers, you have internally displaced persons. A number of them are there. You have environmental migrants. You also have students and education migrants, trafficked and exploited migrants. Some people, even though we are talking about skilled migration, some people are being trafficked. Some people are tricked. And if you see the way they treat these people when they take them there, you begin to wonder why they want to answer. But some people willingly will volunteer, no matter the circumstances. And all of them have the challenges they have are discussed. Director, how many minutes do I have? Director, hello. Okay, we have return migrants. We also have irregular or undocumented migrants. All of them have series of problems. Most of them are legally vulnerable. Exploitation is the cause, and some of them have lots of cultural connections. These are the challenges. Now, with all these challenges, our interest now is to look at to reflect on the challenges of African migrants. Reflection on the challenges of African intercontinental integration. Excuse me a minute. I want to, but this is the meat of this paper. Reflection on the challenges of African intercontinental integration in a very nuanced sense invites a re-examination of African national integration and African continental integration. Whereas the challenge of African national integration focuses on how gratuitous emphasis on ethnicity, indigeneity, and place of origin have combined to truncate national integration in many African countries, such as Nigeria. The challenge of African continental integration xenophobia against African migrants in Africa. What am I saying? Now, migrants, we see that they have a series of challenges. But back home, where they are running away from, you now see that we have similar challenges that You cannot settle in another, you are a Nigerian. If you move from your own region to another region, you cannot settle peacefully in one country. And then you talk about national unity, national cohesion. There is so much emphasis on ethnicity, indigeneity. It was funny that somebody whose mother was married from outside Lagos State was at the election because, meanwhile, the father is from Lagos State. And a number of things happened to so many people. If you, up to today, the issue of abandoned property has remained unresolved. You build a house in Nigeria because you come from, you are not from that particular place, you cannot, at some time, government will seize your property from you. Now, you also see that some people, when they go to another place, they don't even try to get integrated. It is difficult, for example, to go to the southeast and you see one good house built by an outside. It's not possible. Because of what? Because we are making the issue of integration very difficult. And if we have that, it is a problem. That's why I say it is tragic that African migrants do not only face the problem of racism and related deprivations outside their continent, but they suffer from ethnic marginalization and xenophobia in both their home country and continent of origin. It is only logical that the existence of national and continental integration in Africa will enable African migrants to navigate the challenge of intercontinental integration better. If integration is a vital ingredient for attaining desirable human needs, such as quality education, gainful employment, and wealth creation, outside one's homeland, then whatever impedes the integration of African migrants within their country and continent and make them seek for integration in countries outside their continent is indeed paradoxical, as it is regrettable. It is easier for somebody in Nigeria to build or buy a house in London. He wants to go and stay there. But if you go to in the same Nigeria, you go to another region, it will be difficult for you to acquire property. Even if you do, you are unsure of what will happen to that. These are the challenges. These are the paradoxes that we are looking at. And what this means is that we have a major problem there. And that is why I decided to look at the paradox of interconnectedness of humanity. African political philosophy is anchored on the interconnectedness of humanity. When, therefore, ethno-religious tendencies impede migrants' integration in our African states, one begins to worry about the apparent paradox and disconnect from our shared values. Xenophobia and African communalism represent two contrasting aspects within the socio-cultural landscape of African continent. African communalism emphasizes community bonds, shared values, and interconnectedness. Communalism in Africa is rooted in the emphasis on community-centered values, mutual support, and shared responsibilities. Traditional African societies often prioritize collective well-being over individual interests, fostering a sense of unity and interconnectedness. This is what is encapsulated in the Ubuntu philosophy. The concept of Ubuntu, claimed to be prevalent in many African cultures, underscores the interconnectedness of humanity. It promotes values such as compassion, empathy, and communal cooperation, encouraging individuals to recognize the humanity in others and to contribute to the collective good. We also point out that xenophobia, on the other hand, manifests a form of fear, hostility, or prejudice towards individuals perceived as foreign or different. It manifests in discriminatory practices, violence, or exclusionary policies directed at people from different ethnic nationalities or cultural backgrounds. Xenophobia is often fueled by perceived threats to economic opportunities, resources, or cultural identity. Economic disparities, competition for jobs, and the political instability can contribute to a sense of insecurity, leading to the scapegoating of foreigners as the source of this problem. When we're talking about the paradox here, because there's a disconnect between these two phenomena. And that disconnect is intriguing. Xenophobia is a deviation from the principle of communalism. When communities externalize perceived stress, instead of embracing the Ubuntu philosophy that emphasizes shared humanity, xenophobic attitudes view outsiders as threats to the community's well-being. In effect, xenophobia signifies an erosion of Ubuntu values as it involves a rejection of the interconnectedness of humanity. Instead of fostering empathy and cooperation, xenophobia isolates and marginalizes individuals based on their perceived differences. I'm still looking at the issue of xenophobia and communalism. That restores the need to overcome the disconnect between Ubuntu and xenophobia. This can be achieved through promoting education and awareness about the shared history, values, and interconnectedness within African communities, emphasizing the positive aspects of communalism and Ubuntu philosophy can foster a more inclusive mindset. Addressing underlying economic disparities and providing opportunities for shared prosperity can also contribute to reducing xenophobia. Policies that promote economic development and equitable resource distribution can foster a more inclusive society. Again, open and constructive dialogue between different communities can facilitate understanding and reconciliation. Acknowledging historical injustice and working towards common goals can bridge gaps and promote unity. What are we saying? That there is need to go back to our African value system, where we talk about the interconnectedness of humanity and do a great deal of rethinking. Because if we are able to do that and realize that, oh, we are one. I had a Vice Chancellor, Professor Jelilio Matala, he used to say that, look, that we can all spread our hands. That if we spread our hands, that the X can take care of us. But some of the issues that come with xenophobia and the other inhumanities that migrants face is because of insular thinking. There is a lot of insularity. There is a lot of, at times, people don't want to get, they want to think that it's just about them. And so it's creating a problem. And so for us in Africa, we need to go back to our value system and realize that, look, the right to integration is a right, that the quest for integration is a right that the migrants should be accorded. What that brings us to is that there is the desiderator of national integration. What do we mean by that? In Nigeria, let us begin by talking about national integration. What are the things that can make us become one? What are the things that can make us think of one? At times, I look at what happens. If I live in Abuja or to give birth to my children in Abuja, they must come from Ebonyi State, whether I like it or not. But we escape to go to Europe and give to America and give birth to our children at the cost of US. We do that. But we are unwilling to make laws that will remove such bottlenecks. We are unwilling to make laws that will show us as one people. And therefore, we must, as a nation, as a people, as a continent in Africa, look at the issue of national integration. From national integration, we'll go to continental integration. What are those things that will foster national integration and continental integration? Unless we go back to those things, we'll run into problems where we treat migrants. It is therefore on this note that I will conclude that migrants' right to integration is a fundamental human right, rooted in principles that emphasize the dignity, equality, and the universality of human beings. Cosmopolitanism asserts that individuals are, by virtue of their shared humanity, entitled to certain rights and considerations that transcend national borders. African communalism underscores the interconnectedness of humanity, and philosophers like Kwame Anthony Appiah argue for a global ethic that recognizes the moral obligations we have to one another, regardless of our ethnic nationality. African states must lead in this nuanced understanding by a conscious effort and promoting national and continental integration, and by so doing, provide a more inclusive and equitable future for African migrants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for this wonderful exposition.
I'm done.
Yes, can you hear me? I am saying thank you for your presentation. It's really awesome, and we've got a lot of history. Can you hear me? What is answering on the platform? I hope.
Yes, you are.
You are audible.
In the last 15 minutes, he has been talking with us, and we have gone through a lot of history, and this is expected because, like I said, he's a guru in his discipline. So we are very happy that he has shared with us, and we hope questions and answers that we have for this wonderful presentation. So I think the first among the people here that raised his hand is Emeritus Professor Sogolo, and then followed by Professor Akim Tijani, and of course Professor Uba Adamu, and I want them to make their comments in that order. So, sir, Emeritus Professor, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Director. First, I want to congratulate Professor Uduma for this very excellent presentation. You know, in philosophy, or generally, people think that philosophy is difficult. But we in philosophy think that logic itself is difficult. So when you have somebody who specializes in logic, we tend to be scared of that person. And I thought that Professor Duma was going to talk logic that will scare all of us. Fortunately, he has spoken the language that we all understand. And I'm very happy he has done this, because the clarity in his presentation is so obvious. But I have just a few questions I want to raise. That one has to do with towards the concluding part, where he now talks about Ubuntu. And in fact, he's talking about the challenges of integration, and he talked about Ubuntu as an African philosophy of value. You see, I think the challenge, that particular challenge he talked about, is not only at the continental level, not only at the, it's also at the internal level. In other words, internally in Nigeria, where you have migrants, because he talks about migrants within and outside the country. So when you talk about the Nigerian situation, for instance, I'm talking about somebody who goes to Kano, an Igbo man who goes to Kano to settle, and rather than try to integrate with the Hausa, Fulani, and so forth, now begins to congregate, looks for some other Igbo men and women, and begin to form a community, thereby isolating the Igbos from the host communities, so much so that they now live in an Hausa community as if they are living in an Igbo community, speaking their language and so forth. I'm using this as an example. It happens to all ethnic groups, that when they migrate to other ethnic groups, rather than integrate with their hosts, they tend to congregate among themselves and isolate themselves. That, I think, is a challenge. But I want Professor Duma to clarify one thing. When you talk about Ubuntu, for instance, it always sounds strange to a lot of people who are not from What is the equivalent of Ubuntu in Igbo? I want you to try to clarify this. I think I better stop there and give the other people to talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. So, Professor Akin Tijani, over to you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And I actually wanted to speak to issue of diaspora association as the item number 5 on my comment. But since Sogolo mentioned it, I will start with that. And my comment is to say that the formation of diaspora association, whether we talk about nationally, regionally, West Africa, continentally in Africa, and outside of Africa, is not and should not be seen as disruptive of integration. It, in fact, from evidence and based on research, my personal research on the Eco Club, people from Lagos State in the United States and Canada and UK, sometimes ago, I think that would be 1999 or so, also published, showed the other side of it. But we cannot exonerate the micro and individual rivalry, even within such Eco Club, Igbo Association, and other ethnicity, whether it's a Kiswahili or whatever. So I just wanted to say that so that my invocation of the relevance of diaspora associations, or what we call clubs, is so important as agents of integration, agents of learning, to teach the children of those first migrants within the context of their new locale. Having said that, let me say that this paper is majorly about integration mixed with migration. And I think for future and for publication, Professor Zuma, you probably want to look into specificity as against general presentation. The general presentation within the context of philosophy is good, but the interdisciplinarity of the situation of the concept, as well as the reality of events, requires specificity. In other words, apart from explaining clearly within the context of Ubuntu or outside of Ubuntu and integration, you probably want to adopt a case study. In fact, within NOUN, you have case studies. You can look at your students that are outside studying in Malaysia, in US, in Canada, and etc., and engage in what I think I can call him the father of ethnographic methodology now. Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu, usually tells us that the mix of ethnographic method, when you go on, you go to the field, where you do sample a survey, you want to ask, I don't want to mention their name, but you all know them, that are currently at where I, receive a major check, apart from the minor check, if we can put it that way. You can interview them and look at the issue of integration. It will be a nice paper, very, very nice paper. I also want to contribute by saying that migrants also abuse rules and regulations, because you said the host community abused them. In fact, it has been on the other side, the abuse of rules and regulations. I'll give you an example. About, I think it's over a week now, I received a call from a property manager here in Baltimore. And I was wondering, so I couldn't answer. I called her back. She wasn't answering. Cut a long story short, she called me out of the blue in the evening. In the evening, I said, that is strange. Something must have happened. And he said, oh, Dr. TJ, SSS has been evicted. I said, what? evicted. Why? Oh, we were going through the files, and then we saw your name as being responsible for all of them. You use your information to rent, blah, blah. So, no, I hope it's not another case of people destroying my hard-earned credit building in this nation. They said, no, 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 no. This person has taken your name. But why eviction? Where am I going? The rules and regulations and the abuse of it is that particular person, apart from other instances that I have seen, and these are verifiable facts that we could use to write an ethnographic, rich paper, is the fact that the person was telling, oh, I will pay, oh, I'm expecting exchange rate, or somebody is sending, and then leveraging on that person that actually, did that favor, some years back. So refusal to pay rent, even some of them engaging in forgery that we've seen. These are things that we need to interrogate, and I think it will make a rich paper when we do that. Lastly, you talked about causes of the failure of integration, and I just want to add two of the causes. I think greed and corruption can be mixed together. Corruption is not when Emefiele took your money and everybody's money. Corruption starts with you, with me, as that officer, frontline officer, that refused to pass on that paper, that refused to even share that information with new migrants. They are legal migrants. We are not talking of even illegal migrants now. And even if they are not legal, the greed that I don't want to share knowledge. Oh, you can go to XYZ office. They will help you in terms of integration. Oh, you can join this particular club of Isoko Association in Dallas, or Yoruba Association in London, Igbo Association in Denmark, etc., etc. So we need to identify such cases. And lastly, is the lack of moral and ethical responsibility. As a philosopher, with some sense of responsibility, I think that alone could be another paper. Lack of moral and ethical responsibility. People make it up, they lose their morality, they lose their ethnicity, and they just believe jackpa. You have to do whatever it is to make ends meet. When people ask me, I remember at TED Fund, somebody asked me, a director, some years before I jackpada, and I was telling my friend Professor Duma that we have to interrogate jackpada, jalo. These are concepts that we have developed, but we have not really interrogated with reality. So this director asked and said, oh, Prof, I would like to come and see you in your house. Let's talk. I said, house? Which house? Sir, you don't have a house? I said, house. How much is my salary? As a professor, house in Abuja. Where would I get the money? I live on the salary. I said, but you came from... No. Coming from US does not mean that, I have everything. I have never lived beyond my means. This is personal now. And that also explains the greed of our people. When a vice chancellor leaves and they say, oh, he has just a room and parlor, they say, oh my God, a room and parlor? You don't have a house in Dubai? You don't have a house in this and that? How do you justify such? So the issue of morality, ethical responsibility, lack of it, corruption, greed, can also be used to interrogate the issue of integration, lack of integration, and forging ahead. And I think I will rest right there. I'm not trying to represent a paper. Thank you very much for sharing knowledge. I have really enjoyed and being educated. I am more learned because we learn every day. When we stop learning is when we stop listening to others. And of course, we become what? You all know what we become. Foolish.
Thank you, Prof. I will really tell you that this was another lecture, not without mincing words. But
wait until you hear the Baba of the center.
The Baba is waiting patiently, and we are waiting for him. I know he will do justice to it. But we really enjoyed all your contribution anyway. So over to you, sir, Professor Abdallah Ubadamu. We've been waiting to hear your parts.
Good afternoon, everyone. Although he didn't shout out to me, I will shout out to him, the grand old man, who is a specialist on dead white philosophers. And then with his protege, Uduma, who is also another expert on dead white philosophers. They never talked about living philosophers, even Sogolo himself.
Thank you very much, Prof. How are you? It's nice seeing you.
I'm fine. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm reviewing a manuscript for publishing in the US, and it is terrible. Hey. Anyway, to the paper, as usual, like Professor Hakim said, I'm an ethnologist. I believe in anthropology of experience. I'm a scientist. I believe in data-driven research. The first problem I have with Oduma, and Oduma and Eric have always been having hot arguments when I was in the office, particularly in the evening after prayers, after 4 o'clock, when we get down together to have a cup of tea, my coffee and Abdurrahman's tea for them. And then we have all that watermelon and bananas and everything. Oh, those were wonderful days. But my problem with his paper is that it is too loaded, too wordy. It's not a PowerPoint. What you presented as was your MS Word paper that you just cut and paste. So our attention was divided between listening to you and trying to read those tiny, tiny little things on the screen. The whole idea for the PowerPoint is to pick up the main point. Those pictures alone will be enough per slide. And then you talk. But you have divided our attention between listening to you and trying to read. My eyes were training, really trying to read those tiny. I've never seen a PowerPoint like this in all my 40 years of experience in academia. I don't know if it is a new philosophical approach to presentation, or whether Socrates, Aristotle, and all the others, if they were alive, they will present their own in this wordy something. But when you're dealing with multiple audiences, most of us not philosophers, most of us not used to reading, I think it will be better if you can just simply restrict yourself to the main point on the slide, not more than about 3 or 4 points, or with pictures, even better. And then now we can see the picture while listening to your argument. But there is a lot of too much information for us to. Even you yourself, you are just skipping through it, not reading it. So if you could just focus on what you are skipping through, that would have made it a bit more interactive, very interesting. But then you talk about migration and integration, but I didn't see integration in the paper. I saw migration, a lot of philosophical issues about Africans moving from one place to another, but I didn't see integration as such. What is integration? Does integration mean giving up your own fundamental identity and acquiring the identity of those that you found there? Or does integration mean creating your own little enclave and then just simply maintaining your own little Italy? But we all do that. The Chinese form Chinatown. The Italians form little Italy. It is all over. It's not just simply Africans or something like that. We tend to be comfortable in our comfort zones. We tend to focus attention on things that made us safe. Here in Kano, we have Savangari, which was created around 1910 or so, because the emir of Kano at that time says he does not want Christians inside the city of Kano. And up to now, to the best of my knowledge, there isn't a single Christian in the city of Kano. So all the Christians are kept outside in Savangari, which is like a new town or something like that. That's where the fun is. That's why the Igbos, the Yorubas, whatever it is, live. That's why you have the clubs, the bars, and the discos. And that is where the houses sneak too in the night, because that's where the fun is. So, but the fact that the inside the city is co-Islamic means that there are some fundamental values that must be subscribed by anybody who comes inside the city. And if you're not willing to accept these fundamental co-Islamic values, then the city is not for you. That is the dilemma of integration. Do we force people to accept our values simply because they are living with us? Or do we allow them to retain their own values? Retaining their own values, of course, means that they create a segregated community by choice. The Lebanese have been in Kano since around 1910. They are segregated from everyone else. The Yoruba have also been in Kano for a long time. I mean, there is a whole thesis on that. The same thing with Edo people. There's another thesis on that. But the colonials created the Sabangari layout, the Yoruba, the Edo, and the Nufe all migrated out to the new layout, not because it has a better commercial advantages, but simply because that's the place where they can create their own zone. Look at it the other way around. The Hausa in Sabo Ibadan also tend to restrict themselves to their little societies, little communities, and they integrate in a way. They learn the language in order to communicate with other people. A lot of people were born there, but you see the problem. When you are born in Hausa, from a Hausa community in Sabo Ibadan, and you come up north, people in the north consider you Yoruba. They don't consider you Hausa at all. You are Hausa. You have your ancestral home in Kano, inside the heart of Kano, in the city of Kano. But because your cadence, your language, your expression, and maybe your behavior reflected what you have integrated into your own personal worldview as a result of living with the Yoruba in Ibadan, you are considered Bayarabe. So when you come to get married, the first question is they want to know who you are. And of course, the answer is Bayarabe, he is a Yoruba. So, but no, his ancestral home is here. So, no. Can't you hear his accent? I mean, Bayarabini, his worldview, everything about him is a Yoruba. So don't marry him, because if you marry him, you are going to end up with children who have no identity. So the barriers are there, whether it is the Chinese, whether it is the Japanese, whether it is the Italians, whether it is the Irish, whether it is Hausa, whether it is Yoruba. We are more comfortable in our zone. So the question is, and that is why I think it should be philosophical. Should we or should we not integrate? Because that is the answer that I was looking for in his paper from a philosophical perspective. There were practical challenges to integration. These have not been addressed. And I would have loved, at least he did an FGD with some people, even there in Abuja, which is supposed to be like an all-comers town, but it's considered a Hausa city. And the Hausa don't consider Abuja as a Hausa city because the main settlers in Abuja were not Hausa. So you have all these back and forth about ethnicity, about religion, about culture, about origin. I would have loved that Professor Uduma interviewed and talked to people. What is it like? Let them come to Kano. I can connect them to some Igbos. What is it like to be an Igbo person living in Kano? You subscribe to what they do. And if they don't, why shouldn't they? But then at the same time, why should they? Just because I'm living in America doesn't mean I have to be an American. Just because I'm living in Saudi Arabia doesn't mean I have to be a Saudi Arabian. I have my own culture, my tradition. Why would I give up my culture and tradition in order just simply to live in a particular place? So these are the issues that I would have loved to be brought out very clearly in Professor Uduma's philosophical presentation, writing on the issue of Stuart Hall's conception of identity, renegotiations of identity, space, and identity. And then finally, why is it easier for some people to be integrated rather than others? I have a paper on this, which I said I might present to this forum, but I will not, because it has already been presented elsewhere. If I present it here, they will say they're going to publish it. And I don't want it to be published. But it is an extensive paper about the Arab integration and migration to Kano. And the Arabs were integrated for many reasons. Number one, they are white. They're much easier to integrate white people than black people. So if you have somebody from Central African Republic or from Congo coming and staying, it's just simply another African. But when you have an Arab who's distinctly racial, it is easier to accept him. We Africans hate ourselves. We hate ourselves. We prefer light-skinned people rather than dark-skinned people. We see dark-skinned people as evil and light-skinned people as good. Everybody wants to be light-skinned. That is why women spend a lot of money trying to look light skin, which is okay. You spend a lot of money buying all these bleaches and having a white face. But as Fela say, your eyes go black. You know, you are still a black person. You are trying to, you have a broad nose, you have a tiny eyes, you have a huge cheeks, but a light skin, but you are still an African. But when a person is a ready-made, light-skinned person, we readily accept him. And that's exactly what happened. Wherever you go, Oibo, even the shit he produces now good thing. Now better fertilizer than the one with the shit, your own black person. That is a person, racial. Number two.
Professor Badamu.
Ogami, now true I come talk now. Now true I come talk now. When we were children, chocolate was said, this is the shit of a white person. The shit of a white person. Anything to do with white, we like it. Anything to do with black, we don't like it. Look at you guys. You're always promoting dead white philosophers. All right? And I'll never rest on that. Secondly, when migrants come, they come with money, with wealth. And when they come with this money and wealth and they establish businesses, like all these Vitafoam and all these mattresses companies and so on, were established by the Lebanese. What does that mean? It means employment. It means engagement. So it is this that makes it easier for them to integrate because they are together with everybody. But you are an Igbo and you sell spare parts and you only live in one particular area and your relationship with the people around is just simply to sell the spare parts to them, rather than creating a factory where the spare parts could be produced. And that shows a commitment to the place. I mean, these Lebanese were rushing in order to become Nigerians, and I can't even imagine why anybody should be a Nigerian, but they want to be Nigerian. I will certainly get out, because you can't go with a Nigerian passport, you can't go anywhere. But the Lebanese are eager to get Nigerian passports. But I have a friend who's a Lebanese and who gets insulted whenever you call him Lebanese. I say, but you are Lebanese, you are white. A Nigerian is a black man, very, very black. But you are light skinned, and therefore you're not a Nigerian. But that's it. And then finally, whenever they come with this religion, finally, most of those who migrate have a different religion from other people. So are you expecting me to give up my religion in order to show that I have integrated and live peacefully with people, or do I maintain my own religion and therefore remain apart from all this? So I think Professor Uduma's paper is philosophical. So and I'm not a philosopher at all. But I'm an ethnographer, and I think there is a need for us to take a closer look at the parameters of migration. What are these parameters of migration? What makes migration successful? It applies to our own circumstances. And finally, I would like to shout out to Mrs. Ileka. I have never seen her mention this. She has never said anything. For the last 4-5 years we have been doing this, and she has never said a single word. But she has always been with us. So, madam, if you are still with us, shout out to you. I hope you're doing fine. I hope all you guys in Noun are doing fine.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I'm fine.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir, for that wonderful lecture. I really enjoyed every bit of it. But there's a part I didn't enjoy.
That's why it's always great to have
women
you
are not
around.
Struggling to be fair. We are black and proud.
So,
I don't know how we concluded that all women are planning to be fair, so that we can be fine. But on a more serious note, sir, there's something that gives me concern. This one of saying people born in outside born in Sabo in Ibadan, for example, and it's not acceptable when he comes home because he will say, no, this one doesn't know the culture. I think this is the kind of discrimination we are all advocating should be stopped, because we don't need that to grow and integrate in this country. I am very upset when I heard that because it's to me, I don't know whether you are endorsing it, sir, or you think we should fight against it. I don't know, but I think it is wrong, absolutely wrong, to discriminate you like that in your own country because you were not born in Kano, where you hail from. You were born in Ibadan, and then you are not acceptable. I think
I am not endorsing it.
That is my personal.
I think
Thank you,
any form of discrimination. Hello, director. Hello.
I'm not hearing you, sir. Maybe.
No, I'm talking. I'm open.
Okay.
You can hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I am not endorsing I don't like any form of discrimination. I think people should be valued for what they do, what they are, not what they are not. I mean, just because I'm Yoruba or Hausa, or that does not mean you put me on a different scale. So we are also against, in my own family, immediate family, we have girls, my sisters marrying into Igbo families, into Igbos. And we also have families marrying into Yoruba. So our family is really, there are some who have done all this marriages across the ethnicities. But I'm talking about the public culture here in Kano. The moment somebody comes with a different accent, then that person is discriminated against. And I think it is wrong. But hey, that's life. There's not much we can do about it. But we should continue to educate people that don't judge people because of their language or because of their ethnicity or because of their religion, but because of their behavior. And it is wrong to use somebody else's behavior or a group behavior as a template for evaluating an individual.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I think I saw somebody's hands up. Is it Uduagu or something? I saw a hand up. Yes, please quickly say something so that the presenter can respond to all the queries we've had so far. Over to you, Uduagu.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to thank Professor Oduma for this wonderful presentation. Oftentimes, people think that philosophy is an abstract thinking, but today he has applied philosophy to migration, and we can see that this is not about abstraction, but with a real life situation. Every individual is a migrant. Nobody comes from a particular location. You migrate from one place to another, and in search of economic development, we migrate from one place to another. But my question to this presentation is, number one, when you talk about integration, my worry is, must one migrate in order to integrate? Was one migrate in order to integrate? Can one migrate without integrating in a particular place? That's my question. Secondly, it seems that when we talk about migration, it seems it's common to Africa, because it's hard to see other European people, European countries migrating to Africa or migrating to Nigeria. Is the term migration referred to Africa alone? That's my second question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your submission. And at this juncture, I think I will want to call the presenter to react to the comments we've had so far in this presentation. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much. I will start from the first person, Professor Sugolo, and our emeritus professor, asked me two simple questions. Professor, I don't answer one of the questions because he was asking the issue of Chabon Gari. Why would they do that? Now, Professor Abdullah had answered it that it was what do you call it? The emir that said, no, I don't want you to corrupt us. It was a kind of religious purity that led to that. And you see that is replicated in every way you go to. If Northerners come to, what is driving it, which is what I will address when I come to Professor Abdullah's issue, because he raised very critical issues. Then the second thing he asked me was the issue of why talk about Ubuntu. What is the Igbo name for Ubuntu? There is no Igbo name for Ubuntu. Ubuntu is we have an Igbo word. Ubuntu talks about communalism. Igbo talks about umunna, which is about communalism. So, but because Ubuntu has been given some reason, that's why we talk about Ubuntu in Swahili, though. But it has come as a certain philosophy. But what it talks about, and that's why I talk about the interconnectedness of humanity. You don't need to use the word, but I'm talking about the interconnectedness. That is what Ubuntu stands for. But if you want to enable corollary of it, that could be umunna. Now, Professor Tijani raised the kind of question that Professor Abdallah raised. Do ethnographic studies. that the paper is not ethnographic. I should have done interview, perhaps produce questionnaires, do all this. Yeah, that has to do with disparity. It's another issue. I said that I was providing an epistemological construct, that I was not doing a demographic study. Now, unless we are legislating that every discipline must go ethnographic, we believe in theoretical constructs that will guide discussion. And that person can go and do the ethnographic. I avoided it because I wanted to look at it from a point of view. And then when Professor Abdallah started, when I get to him, I will reply. Then he did say something, Tijani said something very important. I said that diaspora associations are not the topic of integration. But the most important thing he said that, because that ethnographic method that made me say I should do a case study, that will enrich the paper. Well, like I said, I know why I went the way I went. But he also raised the issue of that migrants also create problems. It's not only the host communities that are antagonistic. The migrants also could be recalcitrant, thereby inviting some of those antagonism against them. And of course, he mentioned the issue of morality and ethical responsibility. All these are understood, but after this, we'll look at the other issues about why every studies be ethnographic. Now, Professor Abdallah made very important points. When I sent my paper to the director, I thought that I have slides, not PowerPoint. There were reasons why I sent the paper
Yes,
because.
you said so. Yes, you said you have slides.
Not
but
PowerPoint. So, but like he said, you are preferring being this thing. That's understood. It's okay, no problem. But I just knew that I did not mistakenly to be a PowerPoint presentation. But that is not so that is a philosophical method. But I take that contribution very important. The issue of presentation. Now, when Professor Abdullah talks about dead white philosopher, he knows the way we talk about it. His intellectual role models are philosophers. He's a Kuhnian philosopher. So he's a brother metaphysician with a rival first. But the issue he raised, which is very important, he said that the paper concentrated on migration and did not do much on integration, and that there are practical challenges of integration. That point is well taken. However, when the director was asking, most often we have issues, and the issue we have primarily is that our spectacle color our side. What do I mean by that? Your orientation affects the way you look at some of these issues. Well, persistently, the issue of integration, whenever Professor Abdullah talks about the issue of integration, you might begin to think that he's against integration. No. And that is what we are really emphasizing, that there is need for rethinking our idea of migrants, to know that if a migrant is, and this idea of building, trying to preserve purity or building religious divisions, because this was something, like he said, was born out of the purity of the Islamic faith. They didn't want any contamination. And that is the same reason why if you are born in Sabo in Ibadan, you come to Kano, you are seen as somebody who's an infidel, quote and unquote. Now, this raises a number of issues. It does, because how do we, until we break these blinkers, until we break them, Because when we begin to hold onto our own, there is a labor principle that they say akurulo. Akurulo. That principle is saying that it is only when your word gets home that we know that it is your word. But if we're talking about proper integration, what will stop somebody from going to Kano and living among this thing? Because if we accept the humanity of all of us and the need for us to build national cohesion, there is no way we can keep maintaining these blinkers. Uduagu, you asked 2 questions. Integration. Must one migrate in order to integrate? I don't know what you want to. Well, you are integrating because you are out of your homeland. You're out of your comfort zone. So when you now go to that place, you need to integrate to be able to survive there. So definitely, if you do not migrate, what are you? You have no need for integration. Because you have need for integration because you have left your comfort zone. And so you need to integrate into the new culture that you have found yourself. And then you now say, is migration peculiar to Africans? The answer is no. It's not peculiar to Africans. There are migrants all over the place. Mind you, migration could be temporary, it could be temporary movement or permanent. So it is not peculiar to Africans. There are migrants all over. There are some Europeans who have migrated to Africa and they've even acclimatized themselves with Africans. So it's not a peculiarly African phenomenon. Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you very much for your at least trying to answer the comments and questions. We are very grateful for your time and the whole of this presentation. Before now, I was not sure that PowerPoint is not going to be PowerPoint slides. So I concur to my presenter trying to say the slides are not PowerPoint slides. But however, it's a good one. At least like we have all agreed, we keep learning. And so we expect that the presenter will still do more work to make this okay for us to be able to send for review. I must say we must still send for review to be able to publish in our journal. And I want to quickly react to Professor Abdallah's comment that he would have presented one paper, but we will not ask him to come and publish it. It's not compulsory, sir. If you share knowledge with us and you let us know from inception that you've already published somewhere or you don't wish to publish it, we don't force it. We don't force it, but we always want we are interested in knowledge sharing. So that should not be a hindrance, sir, because this is your home, this is your thing. So you are very free to share knowledge with us. So I don't know whether there are more questions, more comments. If none, I think we have taken much of the presenter's time for today. We've been here for quite some time, over 1.5 hours, and we've done justice to his paper. I really want to thank. I can see some people just coming in towards the end, new faces. Perhaps they are not remembering that our presentation starts by 12, and we would have wanted all of them to be here at the beginning so that we have a fuller house. So we're just reminding our people that it's 12 o'clock, and because he's a professor, that's why we stay this long. We give professors 1 hour, but they can go below 1 hour, but not more than 1 hour to make their presentations. And then we discuss for about 30 minutes thereabout. So really, in about 1.5 hours, we are supposed to be done. And we are not too far from that now, because I want to believe we are done, except there are more comments or questions. If not, we are fully done now. But to say, let me look at it, I can't see any hand up. So on this note now, I will want to thank the presenter for a job well done, for at least coming out to share with us. And this is what it takes to share with us so that we can get more knowledgeable and people can see things coming up from his presentation that can give rise to another presentation. This is the whole idea of this platform. And we really thank you, sir, Professor Duma, for your time, for your presentation. We appreciate you. And like I said, the moment I approached you, you did not give me any stress at all. You were ready. Here I am. And I'm very, very grateful for that. I thank my senior colleagues, my employers, everybody on this platform, Professor Abdallah, Emeritus Professor Sogolo, Professor Tijani, and my friends, Mrs. Ileka, all the way from outside the country. She joined and she's always with us, like Professor Abdallah identified. And she's a silent listener, but she does talk once in a while anyway. She's always there. And all my colleagues, I can see so many of you that have come in and out today, and I want to encourage you to always try to make it a date with us. The next one is April 10th, the Wednesday, second Wednesday in April, and we are going to have somebody from outside the shores of our country who will present something unique to us. So I don't want to start to whet your appetite, but when the advert is up, you will see it. It's not a Nigerian, so let us try to integrate that person to this platform. So we'll be seeing the person very soon, and that's for the month of April. I thank you all for being with us, for your attention, for your contributions, and I want to say thank you for being there. I don't know whether the presenter has a last word to share with us, because we are going to close the platform in 1 minute. Sir, any other thing to share with this platform?
I'm just saying goodbye, especially to my friend, my daddy, so Professor Sogo.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I want
Thank you so
to
much.
All right,
thank the director.
Yes, presenter, sir.
Thank you. Professor Obadamu, thank you very much. Make sure I hope you'll be at the next meeting.
Okay.
Well, I try to be at the meeting as possible, but now we are in a period of Ramadan, so
Okay.
there is no activity, no moving up and down.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll try to be, by God's grace, even just to see your face again.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.
Greet the family.
Professor Uduma, are we good to go?
Thank you, Professor Abdallah Obadamu. I'll get back to you so that we can talk about the living Black philosophers. Director, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for participating.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for your presence and contributions. So thank you and bye-bye. Thank you.
Congrats, Director.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. All right. Bye. Yeah. Oh. How are you, my friend?
Fine, ma.
Yeah, just come in. Thank you so much. Thank you.